committee members, if you would take a look at the minutes. If there's a motion to adopt those, we'll entertain that.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, minutes are adopted. Under new business, item number 1, water and sewer, FY22 budget revision number 4, Ms. Standridge.
Yes, good afternoon, council. This is the item that we spoke about during projects committee with Ms. Michaels, project for lift stations 10 and 11. There was in need of some funding for the project, and we have kind of combed through some of the operating funds, different line items, just to find savings where we could. This will include items from wages, repairs and supplies, and then some smaller capital repair projects that we have within the operating fund. We are then proposing to sum all of those together. That's about $70,700, and transfer it to the water and sewer RFFI.
So where's, 142 was the total? Where's the other 72 coming from?
It was in the project budget already.
In the project budget already, all right? So you've got squirreled away within your department 12 grand of wages, 15 of repairs and supplies, 8 of equipment, and a couple of smaller projects you can put off. Okay, any questions? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Revision is approved. Item number 2, water and sewer reserve for future improvements, budget revision number 9.
Yes, sir. This is the opposite side of that exact same transfer amount. So that is just receipting the transfer from the operating fund, from the water and sewer operating fund.
Receipting?
Receipting, as in I'm gonna take it in, I'm gonna receipt it.
All right.
With a T, yes, with a T.
Recipiting.
Yes, there's a P in there too, yes, there's a P in there too. And then applying that same amount to the project budget for lift station 10.
All right. Any questions?
We had that discussion earlier today
Yes,
about
we did.
receipting versus
I thought it was some
receiving.
special accounting term that meant funds were receding back like a hairline.
That's my house.
All right, any questions on the,
Yeah, that's
So
on
moved,
this?
Mr. Chair.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, revision
Now
is
it's
approved.
receiving. Quickly. Yes, sir. This is general fund budget amendment number 12 for the year. There are 2 parts to this agenda item. The first one is to be able to take insurance proceeds that were received due to the loss of a K-9 unit from TPD. That K-9 passed away suddenly, and due to our life insurance policy that we have on the animal, we were able to take some of those insurance proceeds to buy another K-9 that we had
What you
found. We had found
Those
it.
things are expensive, y'all.
This
How much
was-
insurance policy you have?
This was a learning experience for me earlier today.
It was for Mr. Busby, it was for me last week.
Really? Do I need to get
We
insurance on my child?
No insurance.
Huh?
That's- I think it's the only living thing we have at the city that has a life insurance policy.
The only heartbeat that has a life insurance policy on it.
What did you say?
All right, so Chief, how much did we get in insurance proceeds?
17,000, I believe.
And that's what we're acquiring the new K-9 for?
17.5 is the new acquisition price. We actually got 21,000 in life insurance
Okay.
proceeds back from it.
It's not a fully trained dog, chief.
It's fully trained dog, but we also have to send a handler to train with the dog in addition to the training.
And he has to stay, the animal stays with the handler too, right? Yeah, they gotta be family.
Having made the mistake of how many helicopters we have, I'm almost afraid to ask, how many of these $25,000 dogs do we have?
We have 3.
Okay, that's a reasonable number, I think.
Of course you do.
Any
It's
other
funny
questions?
because- It's
Take
funny
care of a couple more, you may be on your way.
it's funny because Chief Blankley originally said in his budget request that he was gonna add another K-9, and then he came and said, actually, I'm ready to buy that K-9 now, and I was like, wait a minute, but that was the situation, so.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
I'm
motion-
sorry, and there, so the second part of that, budget revision, I apologize, that's my fault. Tuscaloosa Fire Rescue is requesting to use $50,000 of their ambulance franchise revenue to be able to purchase a truck for EMS.
All right, so these are the revenues, the franchise revenues we get from the ambulance companies. We accumulate them earmarked to only be used for certain things. Where's the fire? Where's,
I do not see Chief.
I think he had to leave.
Might have fire.
all right, well,
Can
this
I ask
is,
a
If
question?
you wanna carry it over, there's no time crunch, is there, on this? If you'd
this
like-
is from, this is, I understand that we asked them to find things that could be pushed forward. So we could use some of those revenues that we're pushing upwards, building up. But this is a truck, not an ambulance, but it's a truck that's to be used in, Carly, what do they got, pre-EMS?
So EMS prevention, the
EMS
EMS prevention
prevention.
program,
The goal is to use it in our low acuity calls.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Carly, what do we do with the fines from the ambulance company that we get?
fines.
It goes into that fund.
That, I wondered if that was part of that fund.
When we find the ambulance company for,
Yeah.
yes, sir. I'm sorry, I just wanna make sure that we weren't talking about the fines that when we charge other individuals
No,
for
the
ambulance
ambulance
usage.
company.
Yes, sir, that goes into.
Okay, good.
All right, so are there any questions on this item? Then just to keep things clear, this is actually the second part of the item that we just prematurely voted on.
Yes,
So
sir.
is there a motion to vote to include both of these together?
Mr. Chair, I also move that we would include both A and B as given by our CSFO. into the
Second.
motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That clear it up?
Yes.
Okay.
Next item, I forgot. We on number 4 or 5?
Before.
Mm-hmm.
General Fund Reserve for Future Improvements, Budget Revision number 11.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. This is, if you will recall, last week during Projects Committee, Brian Gurney came forward with a change order for the Greensboro Avenue Drainage Project. That change order will require an extra $35,882. This is the budget revision to be able to fund that change order. We are requesting to pull it from contingency within the RFFI.
Is there somebody here from that project to brief us?
I do not see.
Okay, I think
He
we
brought it
did
up
that in
He
projects
brought it
last
up
week.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just to fund it, right, Carl?
It was just
It's
the
just to
fund.
fund the change order, and this is the final balancing change order for the project. So this
That's
will
what
To
I'm
close it
zero it,
out.
to close it out, that's
Right.
right. That's what we talked about last week.
Any
Yeah.
questions or a motion?
Motion approved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved. Item number 5, authorization to disperse from the District 4 Improvements Fund, me.
Right.
So I have, still have all 10,000 of my District 4 improvement funds. I am wanting to move 5,000 over to the downtown YMCA to help them build I think it's called a rig. It looks like a jungle gym for adults.
Mhm.
Jump up, climb up, swing from one thing to the other, and it will go out into that grass section behind the building. It's designed to help them attract the CrossFit crowd.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved.
Be fun to vote against.
Item number
He
6,
voted against mine. Is that right?
BJ,
Sure would if you did.
He would. I know he would.
yeah, all right, it's enough chatter. Edward Burns Memorial Justice Assistance Grant.
We're gonna get
Yeah, we've got
going.
awarded a grant that we're gonna use to purchase one of our patrol trucks and outfit it.
So the grant has been awarded, or are you asking to apply for a no-match grant?
This is a no-match grant that has already been awarded.
No,
I'm
sorry. So the Edburn Memorial Justice Assistance Grant is, we basically have a known slot that if we were to apply for it, we basically would be awarded for it just upon application. However, this is to be able to apply for it outright. So we have not been directly awarded We
Okay.
just have a known slot that we have available to us if we were to.
No match, and how much would the grant typically be?
$50,000.
Okay.
Any questions?
What do we usually use that for?
We purchase a patrol vehicle for it. The patrol vehicle is just a truck, sorry, excuse me if I'm speaking. It's just a truck outright, and then, we can use the rest of it for equipment on the truck.
To outfit it, to make it look like
Lights.
TPD,
Yeah.
lights, camera action. All right.
Computers, things like that.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion is approved.
All right.
Update, quarterly operating budget report and quarterly revenue report. Mayor.
Yes, sir. We'll jump right in. As you know, we are knee-deep in the budget process. And on August 25th, as I mentioned at pre-council, we'll be presenting our budget recommendations to you. As you can see, that this year, our general fund, our major revenues within the general fund continue to be higher than our what we were compared to 2021. As we've discussed, though, in recent weeks, we're also very aware of what's going on in the national economy and what is happening and trying to figure out what we should do. Carly has been in contact with the finance directors of 8 of the 10 largest cities in Alabama, discussing their approaches to it. So we're looking at the national picture, also looking at what our colleagues are doing around the state as we begin to project out for the budget. You're aware of this information. These are the major revenues within the general fund budget. So let's just go ahead and jump in about where we are. The gold line is 22, the black line is 21, and the gray line is 20. So when you look at our sales tax collections for the month of May 2022 versus 21, you can see that we were about 3% higher in sales tax collection. Overall for the year, according to Carly's team, if we collect the 95% of what we collected last year for the remaining months of this fiscal year, so we assume a 5% decrease, we will finish with a surplus in sales tax a little over $3 million, $3,035,000. So, we're still in relatively good shape.
Well,
on
can
that.
I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
When you said earlier that, and I could direct this, I guess, to Carly, but you had discussions, what is the consensus of the other CFOs and people, Carly, about kind of where we are, what we're thinking could happen?
Yes, sir. So obviously, the idea of a recession is looming large in all finance directors' minds across the state. Everybody's taking it into their calculus in different ways. I think that one of the major, takeaways that we are all kind of in alignment on is that we will slow growth. Growth will significantly slow. We have been seeing double-digit growth over the last couple of months, over the last year. Double-digit growth in sometimes sales taxes and use taxes. I do think that everybody is projecting that growth will slow somewhat back to normal trends. Every single other Big Ten city actually does budget in growth in these large revenue lines for regular budgeting processes. We do not. We never have really before, except in certain aspects where we feel that it is warranted. We've taken an extremely conservative approach with the entire tenure that I've ever known, where we will just budget at prior year collections. So we've never really budgeted
Tell
growth.
them what Auburn did last week as part of their they have a bicentennial, not bicentennial, biannual budget.
Biennial something, yeah, they have a biennial budget. So they basically adopt 2 years worth of a budget at one time. Every year they will then go and update that secondary year as their new year and then create another year on top of it. So every year they're adopting two new budgets, 2 new budget years. So what they are doing is they have seen specifically 19% growth over sales and use tax this last year already. They are budgeting to slow that and project growth into fiscal 23 at only 2%.
Oh, wow.
They are the next most conservative to us. So they are still budgeting growth at 2%. We are, with all of our policies previously, we've only budgeted at level.
Before that, were they when you had the huge double-digit growth? Were they still being real conservative like us? Like in the budget, like
They
if
did
they
not
were
give-
up, that they were like 2%, or they were
I think
going
so.
into that budget and then they were over that
Fis-
much?
So so fiscal '22, I think that, I remember, this is not, I did not ask Allison
Yeah.
Allison Edge about this specifically, but I think I remember prior year, they budgeted about a 4% growth last year. So everybody is anticipating that growth slowing. However, we are the most conservative in our thinking at this point. We are looking at recessionary budgeting right now. I will tell you that there are some cities that are just looking at average growth over the last 20 years. Hoover is currently projecting at 4% growth for sales and use taxes in fiscal '23. Montgomery is projecting at 5% growth. So that kind of tells you where we are. Even if we were to continue prior year policy at level, we would still be the most conservative.
It's safe to say, unless the economy really improves the next couple of weeks, I've only got really, my budget's due to you August 25th, but I really have to be fundamentally done about 2 weeks out, so they can go back, double check it, get it to printers, get everything nailed down, the I's dotted, T's crossed. Unless over the next couple of weeks there's some dramatic jump, I think at best my budget will be prior year collections, at best. Yeah, there won't be any of our major revenue items except property tax and maybe lodging tax due to a new hotel coming on. Those would be the only two line items where you might see us project any growth, just because we can do that with pretty much certainty as opposed with
sound.
Yeah.
Sound reason though.
So you're not, again, we certainly, I think we will grow, but this is a strange time. Not many people, I don't recall in my lifetime where you've seen such low unemployment, yet such low consumer confidence, higher interest rates, shortages of different materials, a war in Eastern Europe. I mean, there's a lot of things out there.
And 9%, nine and change conservative estimate of inflation. We're losing 10% a year standing still.
So again, and that's what at the end of this time next year, hopefully we were ultra conservative. The economy is thumping a lot better than what we anticipate. And then we can certainly then enjoy another good year of surpluses like we will this year.
So are we the beneficiary of sales tax? If the prices are going up at an average of 9%, we're getting 9% more sales tax revenue, right? Standing still.
I do think that, on the front end of the idea of a long-term recession, yes, we are the beneficiaries on the front end. Obviously, when we get to the expenditure side of things, you'll see the
If construction's
resulting
going up
impact.
faster than inflation is, it's still a net loss.
The first couple of months of our fiscal year, though, were great. We had great revenue streams, and we weren't being hit that hard with inflationary costing as of yet. That's starting to come.
I think in the end, you do get that bump, and that's good, but the pace of expenditures are going to outpace the revenues you may gain from it. But we'll certainly see, and again, because of that uncertainty, I think the best course of action is just to do what we've primarily done, how Mike Wright taught me, and Carly has taught me, is that there's only one way to go wrong in this equation, and that's over-anticipate or overestimate your revenues. So you will continue to see that pattern in our budget recommendation. And looking at use tax, again, we were up versus prior month of our prior year, same month prior year. So we're on a very good pace. Right now, if we finish equal to the collections of last year, we will have a surplus in this line item, a little over $800,000. We're already at 79% of budget. SSUT is one that you will continue to see growth, and you'll probably see us project growth in this line item. I will say, though, getting a few dimes on the dollar is nice, but you're not getting the full dollar. But it's still, at this point, until we're able to amend the state act, continues to be a very good revenue source. I think certainly COVID changed a lot of buying patterns, and you're gonna continue to see this number increase. We're at 87% of budget, and at this time, if I follow my line item, we expect $1 million plus surplus in this line item. Property tax, a little, really, you see there on the chart, the main months are November through February of the collections. Right now, we anticipate about a $2 million surplus in property tax collections. That's one that you can feel confident in adjusting, or next year saying there may be a 2%, 3% increase in property tax.
What's the timing difference?
There's due in isn't it due December 31st?
So why don't we show one,
You see a one
Bill,
difference there, which is the spike, is that what you're saying? between
yeah,
December-
I'm looking at one is 22, we get the spike in December, it looks like, and 21 was in January or February.
Maybe
That's
could be.
just a reflection of when they're paid in with the county and the county.
The county's the one who receipts that, and then
But isn't it probably,
Due in
it's a month behind though, isn't it, Carly? Would it be from them, or is that actual cash they sent to us?
Well, no, so we book it during the time that it's actually earned, and so,
Cause if somebody pays, like I write my check in December is what I do, like to get the tax break, right? Is that reflected in January, or is that reflected in December?
for us, for the city of
Yeah,
Tuscaloosa.
for the city,
If
the
you,
city.
if you pay to the county in December,
December.
we won't get it until January.
There's part of your answer. That's why that's that way. Probably.
Probably won't get it until February, depending.
And
Yeah.
everybody doesn't pay it on time.
No, that's right, and probably that happened, but that probably shows that you got, some people paid it in November,
to
right? November, October, some people write in
Probably so,
October,
Yeah.
you know.
To reinforce why we are conservative with our revenue estimates is because it is always nice to have surpluses of 2 million here, 1 million there, 3 million there. Because we do know in the course of a year, there's a sinkhole that's to be nameless that will appear. I mean, there's always gonna be those things, and to know
Or
you're
slope failure.
slope failure, you've always
correct.
got these things that are out there, and it's good to have these types of backstops. If you go ahead and you say we're gonna have 4% growth, and you have 2% growth or 1% growth, you're not gonna meet your budget, and you're still gonna have to deal with the surprises. So that strategy that Carly and her team put in place is sound. Retail tangible tax, again, a little bit above prior year. It's a small line item, but certainly can be a reflection of the economy. Lodging tax, we feel very good about this. We actually, for this year, I wanna make sure I got this right, Becky, 3 home games in September this year versus 2 last year. So I do think we're gonna finish strong in the lodging tax category. And so at this point, we're close to about $1.6 million. If you assume prior year collections on the last quarter, a $1.6 million surplus in this line item. And next year you'll have the Alamite, well, actually you'll have the Alamite come online in this fiscal year.
In September.
And so,
So when you do the budget and you only have numbers through June, probably, right? Actual numbers so how does that finish, how do you finish the year out?
Like July,
Go
August.
back, I mean,
what we're
to
doing,
come up with a number for
well, this is where the
October
council
1.
has a little bit more of an
We get to look
advantage.
at them a month after.
You'll have
Yeah.
another month of revenues that you can probably make some more decisions, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
What we tend to do, and I'll ask Carly and Becky to layer on top of what I'm about to say, is that most of the time we just assume we'll collect the prior year for those remaining months. This year, as we mentioned in a couple weeks ago, we're toying with the idea of even saying some of those months are going to be less than prior year, so that it gives you a lower number on your collections, which would go ahead and then bake in a potential recession in your budgeting process.
more conservative.
But you'll have another month worth of revenues. In fact, you'll have, let's see, if I present August 25th, when would they have, what would be the next round of their?
They'll have June revenues. So by the time that we have to have your budget completed, we won't have June in yet. But by the time the council has it to consider, we will have June information, yes.
And although you should be finished, you could possibly have July in before the official adoption. But, you'll probably be close to being finished with most of your work by then. A dwelling tax, certainly this is one that comes in quarterly. You can see the peaks and valleys with that. The 1% dwelling tax that we have, that appears to be about $228,000 above prior year. We do not have the 2% yet. I don't believe we have that 2% number that goes towards the public safety plan. So we'll get that to you once we have those collections come in. Short-term rental, again, you can see the increases that everyone's returning coming out of the post-COVID environment. This has been a really good year for business licenses. And right now we're projecting a $1.5 million above budget. Now the good thing about business licenses is that we can project with some confidence, if we wanted to, some growth in this category because it's based off prior year growth sales.
In arrears,
Yes.
correct?
When you say it's been a really good
It's really
year for
good.
business license, am I reading it wrong? We're down from last year?
Down from last month of last year, but most of our business licenses come in by February 15th.
Yes, sir.
So we do get some licenses here and there. But we
But you're
may just,
projecting that on the previous year's
Right.
revenue, correct? So that ought to be a bright spot, I would hope, right, Carly?
Yes, so if you're looking, and this is the one thing about your right, like with the 1 year in arrears. So 2021 is the black line. That's the big spike that you're gonna see here. So 2021 revenues for business licenses are actually based on 2020 activity.
Right.
Yes, we had COVID. Yes, we shut down in the middle of the year. However, if you remember correctly, a lot of the slowdown in the economy didn't really happen that what we expected. People started building onto their homes. They started doing other kind of renovations. There was a lot more activity that was happening for personal use. And so the 2021 numbers that are actually based off of 2020 activity, we had full up until March, up until middle of March. And then we actually had people spending from their homes for the rest of the year. So that's that big spike. And then you had a little bit of like the settle in happen. That happened, the actual activity was in 2021 that we now know we are collecting in 2022.
Gotcha.
So compared to budget, we're doing really well.
And so then that means that for 2022, the actual is gonna be much higher by the time the budget.
So
Based on-
if we project 2023 for
Yeah.
2022 activity, I mean, 2022 has been a banner year
Right.
for all sales across the spectrum. Like the mayor said, and he's the one that mentioned it, you probably could factor in some growth because you know that 2022 of activity was such a good year.
but we may not do that. We may just, again, we're looking at major line items that are gonna be impacted by the recession. Although business license is a reflection of prior year, we might, for an ounce of precaution, levelize that funding and not project any growth, even though we know that there would be growth just based off the sales tax number that we'll collect. That's the analysis that's going in that certainly we'll be reporting back out to you on the 25th. Now this is the one that I think we have to, this is the canary in the coal mine, if you ask me, because, and I sent y'all those numbers last week. Our building permit numbers are down. And now certainly timing plays a difference, but I don't think you can just sugarcoat that. That's real. And that's
Forward-looking.
I think,
Right?
yes.
Yeah.
And I think we have to be very, we have to understand that it's down for a couple of reasons. One is just, there's not a lot of places in Tuscaloosa to build houses.
Right.
We're running out of
space.
sites to build houses, which the expansion of our sewer is key in that. Number two is that commercial activity has declined for a couple of reasons. One is just the uncertainty, the inflationary impact, Number two is that commercial, especially retail commercial, is changing. The days of a Shops of Legacy Park or a University Mall or a Midtown are gone. You'll have some of that, but you don't need as much space now. You're more of a showroom than you are you're stocking inventory.
That's why people do these pop-up shops.
It's changing.
It's changing. So this is something we need to keep a good eye on. Ashley Kreitz has done a great job of providing us detailed information on this, and so I think if I were the council, and this is one of those things that if I'm saying, okay, our economy could be slowing down, building permits, looking at this number, that is something I think we need to be looking at closely and continue to analyze and talk to the people out there in the industry. I meet quarterly with our commercial retail brokers, and we ask them about this very thing. They still say there's a lot of activity out there, and there's a lot of people looking. When you talk with our home builders, they just quite frankly need more sites. So anyway, that's something for us to keep in mind. We're only 54% of budget, and at this point, we're anticipating a $352,000 deficit in this line item. Our countywide sales tax continues to grow. We are anticipating a $1.4 million surplus, and that assumes we only collect 95% of what we collected last year for the last quarter of this year. So that's going ahead and assuming an inflationary or a recessionary environment the last quarter of 2022. Again, that's a very strong number. Overall, on our general fund revenues, we are anticipating a $12.4 million surplus as of today. So a very, very good, very strong number on our general fund revenues. Looking at Elevate Tuscaloosa, it's sales tax, use tax driven. Again, it's reflect what you saw on the general fund side. As we did on the general fund, about 3% above prior year. Use tax, the same. And Becky, if I'm looking at this correctly, we anticipate if we only collect 95% of what we collected in the last quarter of the last fiscal year, we will finish with a $1.5 million surplus in sales tax, a $403,000 surplus in use tax. Overall, we will finish 1.9 million above budget in revenues for Elevate. Again, Elevate is, as with the general fund, the revenues are extremely strong and well ahead of budget for the city of Tuscaloosa. Last, the water and sewer fund. Certainly, it is a lot stronger than it was in prior year, and that's in large part due to the courage of this council to make the right decisions for the water and sewer fund and not putting off till to tomorrow what needs to be done today. And I think you see that reflection in the revenues themselves. For water, this is not, and y'all correct me, Becky and Carly, because I always get it wrong. This is not what we have physically collected. This is what we have billed. Okay.
And we'll typically run 300 short a year.
Yep, we budget about 350 in bad debt expenses. And I think if you'll recall, the last time we did a bad debt write-off, we were kind of projecting that this upcoming year would be the bad one if we continued with the COVID forgiveness program or extension program. We had a meeting with Alvin Brewer this morning, and to say that he and his team have done an exceptional job in working to get that collections down. So we actually are not anticipating the bad debt write-off that we were.
And then we were briefed last week on what was it, 400,
551,000.
550 available now.
We were down to 551, and we've been as high as 1.6.
Oh no, I'm talking about the program that we got briefed on last week
Oh,
to help people pay their water bills. that's funded at 400 now and available?
Yeah, there was a lot available, that's for sure.
Alvin and his team do such a great job. They really work hard, and they are to be commended. They've also went out and have strategically targeted large water customers, while at the same time working with our water and sewer customers. I do think something that you need to put in your calculus, because we're having to put it in ours, is that under what was passed by the city, we will have another 6% capital increase this year for the capital projects. It's also tied to the CPI. The CPI would be 5.1%. So it would be a total of 11.1% if you were to apply the whole CPI, which we're required to under ordinance. So I want you to keep that in mind. We're working through these scenarios right now. We're not close to having a recommendation to you, but certainly that is something we're concerned about, and so we're debating it internally about how we want to address and handle that. You will see when you receive your budget for me that our costs in water and sewer have exploded. Not personnel costs, just the cost of chemicals, for example. All of those things are tied to inflation. A lot of the chemicals that we use have been part of the slowdown in the economy. We're experiencing all that. So we're working through right now those issues internally.
When do you expect an update on the company that we hired that's supposed to come in and look at potentially picking up some revenue we didn't know? And I think, am I remember correct, we're supposed to share 50%?
Yes.
Well, then when will we start seeing something from that?
I've asked our team to, once we get through the budget, then we will activate that contract at this point. Right now, as you know, with the changes that we've had in IPS, I didn't want us taking on that until we got through the budget process. Also, too, quite frankly, in the last 2 months, Alvin and his team have made up such ground. You know, sir, we want to, when we go,
Sure.
when we go and negotiate that final contract with them, we're in a
There's
little
things you can exclude, and we want to make, I mean, that which it makes very prudent sense for the city.
Oh, I think it's a great thing. I really do. And I think
Yeah.
once, you know, as we discussed and as we've looked at the organization, that's one of those things that I think I'd like Kimberly's advice on, certainly Alvin's guidance, Ron's guidance on.
Can I ask a question
Yeah.
too? With all of the changes that we've had in IPS, it probably is very prudent for the staff and the team to really relook at that deal and make sure, because I know that was one of the things that, I don't know, I was concerned about, was we were talking about industry standard, we were talking about, are we giving too much away? Does that make sense? And I mean, in light of all these, I guess, changes that we've had, I'm glad y'all are slowing that down a little bit, maybe looking at it again.
Well, I agree with you, and I think I agree 100%.
And I'm very grateful that we haven't implemented that either, because based on what, again, my memory's getting fuzzy the older I get, but based on the conversations that we had, I would have thought that already would have been implemented, because we voted to approve that, correct?
Authorize the contract.
Correct, right.
Yeah.
So that's very good news that hadn't happened too.
I felt
think.
like we had a window to pause,
Glad you did.
and the changes that we've had recently, I felt like necessitated an evaluation. I do think, as I did then, that contract has a lot of merit. But now that Alvin and his team had a plan, they implemented the plan, they have shrunk that pool so effectively, I think we have to take another look at it.
But that's a big difference though, of what, I can't remember what Carly said we were looking at. That potential write-off number was terrible. I don't know how many potential, it was a bad number.
About 1.4 million.
Exactly.
Mayor Maddox, if I could have 1 point. to
Yeah,
discuss.
please.
Councilor Crowe, to your point, Mayor Maddox's credit to Ron and Alvin have actually identified a lot of accounts that they can go out and capture on their own, so there's no reason to give up that revenue. if
I
they
think,
can do it themselves. So if we can do it ourselves and kind of delay that and get as many as we can take on, we won't lose the 50%.
but to your point, Brendan, I think that was the discussion that we went back and forth with in projects about.
And that's credit to
Or-
Ron and Alvin.
Exactly, that's a great job.
They-
Because I think you can, because I remember those discussions, you can identify areas that we've identified that are problems, so you're not giving up something, but you're not giving it up if we already know it's a problem. I think that was the discussion I know we had in projects
Well,
a couple of times, so that's good. I'm glad that's happening.
Ron and Alvin, I meet with them weekly on water and sewer billing, and you know, when we had a change, those two were appointed to address specifically. When they met with me, they said, "Give us an opportunity. We think we can do something." I said, "Well, you go," and they've done it, and I'm proud of both of them.
It's good.
Job they've done.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, go down that.
No,
That trail, that was a good trail to go down though, because we
That's
had
his trail.
well, but we had a big discussion about that in
No, and
projects, I remember, and finance, but I mean, that was a
Mr.
big
Crowe,
deal.
we were listening loud and clear,
Good. I'm glad. Y'all did a great job on that, Mr. Mayor.
and they did. I just take credit for their great work. They did all the
Well,
hard work.
you're getting some errors for the other, so that's probably good to take a little credit for that. That's good.
Yeah, well, they're the champions. Sewer revenues are the same. Overall, we're in a really, really good position as we move into the budget, and our team will be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Can I ask another question too? Yeah, just one other question, Carly and Walt. But when we get the budget on water and sewer, and all this stuff is calculated in because we've had the rate increases and we were selling more and all that stuff, I understand what's billed is not collected. But we probably feel, I would guess, more confident that we will collect a lot better because we're billing better. We feel more confident, right, in what we're doing, where we are having a big problem with that. When that money is set aside, there should be, in my mind, more money available to handle water and sewer projects, because it should be healthier, right? So when the budget comes to us, those are discussions that we're going to have about pools of dollars to take care of some projects, right? Is that how?
Actually, Carly brought up the better collections, more of the AMI meters getting into the ground, as that in and of itself is going to have a positive revenue impact. The issue with the AMI is twofold. Number one is that they were placed out into the field without enough supporting infrastructure to make it happen. And I take full responsibility for that happening out in the field.
Is that the electronic meters?
Yeah,
all that in the back part of that, the backstory of that.
And they, you know,
Back
and
office.
again, they're quite, frankly, there wasn't, in my opinion, I don't think that we strategically thought out that process in a way that reflected any sort of long-term understanding of the law of indirect consequences. Coupled with that, COVID, coupled with that, now labor shortages, especially meter reading, it created a lot of things that we've had to unwound from. And again, ultimately, the buck stops with me. I take full responsibility for that. The good thing is that we have now, thanks to this council, you have authorized us about $3 million in new AMI purchases. Ron's going to be coming back to you either next week or 2 weeks. We went out to bids on that, and I don't think we received a bid. I'm going off memory. He has an alternate idea he wants to share with you, but ultimately it means just a slower process of getting those AMI meters into the ground.
But what's the reasoning for, do you know yet why we didn't get more? Is it because the equipment's not there? That people can't supply what we need?
I think
We have the
Or
equipment, and we have the meters.
You have
It's
it.
just a labor
It's
contract.
putting them in place.
the issue is that it's
No one has the workers to do it?
they don't have the workers to do it, and
Wow.
we're struggling as well. I mean, in meter readers, we even asked Ron, well, can we all volunteer to go be meter readers? And the issue is not necessarily the reading of the meters, it's the institutionalization of the routes themselves. It takes about 2 weeks to get someone fully trained with the routes, with the process. We're pushing everything that we know. We the other day at staff meeting, if this requires signing bonuses, if this requires different hours, if it requires a Saturday, we're working a ton of overtime. If it requires hiring people part-time that may work somewhere else, we've got to think differently about this labor shortage. I'm going to get on my soapbox. Stacy Cooper will be in here in a second to push me off of. We can't approach what we're facing in workforce shortages as a municipality. We will fail. The private sector will beat us every day of the week and twice on Sunday. How we do it, I've asked our team to really think about it, but we're going to have to start doing some things that a year ago, 2 years ago, we'd say we would never do. Now, I'm not saying we should do these things, but I think we have to put on the table. Do we look at signing bonuses? Do we look at retention bonuses? Do we look at part-time employees that work on a Saturday or Sunday that maybe work for another municipality or another government, and we say, okay, we'll just hire you for Saturday and Sunday? I think we have to throw all those things on the table.
I think you have to include in that short list of hard measures that are out of the normal channels to be looked at is what parts do we contract out? Who's doing the calculation of, okay, after we buy an employee, buy his health insurance, buy all the things that come with that, even though the price may be higher for contracting a particular service out, we come out better in the long run. I mean, I'm obviously from the military that, we figured out who's got to pull triggers and who's just supporting them. And, we're not buying their homes, their churches, their Burger Kings on bases, their insurance and their health coverage and their kids' schools. We're paying double and triple rates to contractors, but it's because when the work's done, see you, contractor.
Well, one of the things that Brendan, LaShonda, and Wendy are looking at, we're about to take on in full measure over the next 3 to 5 years, $500 million worth of construction, whether it's infrastructure construction, vertical construction. We are about to take all that on. Now that would mean, for example, certain entities do it certain ways. The university just brought on, Brendan, about 8 construction managers. And by the way, they're the gold standard. And we will never be able to compete with their salaries or benefits. One of the things that Brendan and LaShonda and Wendy are looking at, should we just contract those positions out? Yes, you pay a higher cost at the front end. If you looked at a 5-year, you're paying higher, but you also don't have a pension, you don't have a health insurance plan, you don't have that cost for 30 years or 40
You're
years.
not providing
You don't have Social Security, you don't have any of that. You're
So-
just paying them, right?
You're going to begin seeing next year those type of proposals because it just makes a lot more sense, because you're not always going to have an Elevate or a 10-year water and sewer plan where all of a sudden you have a massive amount of projects in a short period of time. So why go hire 12 construction managers that you've taken on that responsibility for 25, 30, 40 years?
Walt, I know transportation is not a good, and some things maybe it's a good comparison, but several years ago, when we had to go to sign-on bonuses, retention bonuses, referral bonuses, I mean, we pay a truck driver $5,000 to come to work for us.
How did your current employees feel about that? Did it create issues for you?
No, because then they can get a referral bonus. Most truck drivers a lot of them come from referrals from people that work. They don't get $5,000, but maybe you get $2,500. But the $5,000 is paid over 12 months. You don't get all of the money. You get a piece of that money within the first paycheck you get. For example, maybe we pay I think it's maybe now $1,500 of it. You get a huge influx the first month or so that you get it. But if you leave, you've got the ability to take it back, part of it, right? Prorated back. But having team members here at City Hall, maybe even recommending people and paying them a bonus for someone that comes, but they also have to earn it. the person has to be here a certain period of time,
I
you
got
know,
you. I
before you
like
can
that.
do it.
We,
I think that's good.
one
a good
of the,
thing.
LaShonda said if we do that, kind of similar to what you said, we need to have a contract with them that if they were to leave after 1 year or 2 years, they would have to pay the city back. But I like the idea of the referral bonus because that can help.
To help with morale too, it could help people want to recruit somebody to come to their department. And you would pay them that, but then they've got to stay.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to have a mechanism in there for that, but that works pretty well for us.
We are in the crew worker.
From office, I'm just saying from office people, not just truck drivers, but if there's a job posted and I referred, not me, but I referred John to come be a dispatcher, for example, there's bonuses that can be paid for that, which I think helps incentivize employees to bring people in.
I think after we get through the budget process, which is the most dominant thing we have on the horizon right now, as we shift into the fall, we want to begin putting these ideas on the table and working with the council because I don't think the shortage of workforce is going to be. I think this is going to be the new normal. There's been what do they call it, the Great Resignation. There's just not a lot of workforce out there, and we are suffering in these, especially in crew workers, meter readers. I mean, police is kind of its own thing, but it is.
But we're trying to address that, but that's still a problem. But I'm telling you, when it comes to retirement here is great outside of law enforcement. But I'm just saying retirement's good. You've got the insurance. Health insurance is a really big deal for people. You know,
And you know, we're in a culture, as the mayor talked about, the workforce. When you begin to look at the 15-year-olds who are going to matriculate and become 18-year-olds, and they're looking for jobs, and they'd rather go to a plant job and make $20 an hour that has becoming a contract worker. As a city, we're looking, and a municipality, we're trying to give you a lifelong career that can be substantial so that you can raise a family.
Well, the other thing I'll add, and I know we need to move on.
Ms. Howard's gonna choke us if we don't get her.
Right now, we require a high school diploma or GED.
Right, and that's good.
But should we?
Mm.
I mean, we exclude ourselves from a portion of the workforce, and again, that may be something for us to look at.
Yeah, thank you.
We don't wanna lower too much.
All right, anybody got any other, thank you, Mayor. Any other business Ms. Standridge holding up on?
Sorry, one very, very quick thing. We have the agency funding presentation schedule ready to go. London Jenkins has emailed it out to all of you guys, but we can just go over it just for 2 seconds. On August 2nd, and they're all during a finance committee meeting. On August 2nd will be Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. On August 9th will be Lift Alabama at the Phoenix House, Tuscaloosa Civil Rights History and Reconciliation Foundation, and West Alabama Food Bank. Those are the new ones. On August 16th, we'll have community service programs and para. On the 23rd, we would have the Board of Education, and then on the 30th, we'll have the public library. So we've scheduled them all. All of the agencies have been alerted to the presentation date.
These are only
And those are all
agencies we're seeing.
scheduled into the finance committee meetings?
Yes, sir.
Is there, all right, so do we have, is it normal finance committee times?
Yes, sir.
All right,
At
so,
15.
and we've got the leeway on the back end?
Yes, sir. On the long one, on the 9th, we do. Yes, sir.
Okay.
And it starts when,
At 3:15. So it's just regular finance committee meeting time.
starting the date.
Oh, I'm sorry, on the 2nd, August
August
2nd.
All right,
And it's all in your email boxes too if you need them, and we'll be sure to get it on the calendar if you like that as well.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson, Mr. Crowe, anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.